everybody. Welcome to Key Culture podcast. This is Matei, Gheorghiu and Niilo Tarnanen,
Hello.
our co-host. And today we have Markku Klami, composer and music educator, just like me and Niilo. But Markku,
Hi.
nice to have you. And Markku is
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Markku is a very skilled educator. He has been working for many years in music schools in Finland teaching. And you can find out more about Markku from his website in the video description. We will put some links from him there. So I will start by making a small introductory about the Finnish education system as a whole, because for many people who might be watching this from abroad, they don't know very much about it, but just from some kind of myths that they heard, especially from Michael Moore's movie, Where to Invade Next. I would say as a foreigner who has come to and moved to Finland 13 years ago, that there are some things that I can clearly see as better than at least in my country. For example, there's everywhere school buses and kids can go to school very easily. And anyway, many people can afford cars and can take their children to school. Then every school provides a good meal for every child. Everyone gets a lunch at school. It's quite hard to believe that that wouldn't be possible. Then I would say schools are very well equipped in Finland. You have smart boards, you have iPads, you have computers, you have everything you want. And very often if something gets destroyed or you need a new chair, a new door, you need something fixed, you can talk to the director and you can get them replaced. It's never an issue, it's not so much of an issue to say that I need this to have my teaching done better. So that's very important in my view. Also, I would say that teachers are very well schooled here. It's very hard to be a bad teacher. Your colleagues are not going to like you. You're going to get asked every once in a while what you're doing. People are going to find out you're not a very demanding teacher or not very good teacher. And I guess that's pretty good for the work environment. Also, every school, I would say, is in a way the same. Whether you're in central Helsinki or in North Lapland, the level of equipment, of teachers, it's very, very similar. Of course, it's not always the same, but you would expect in bigger cities it's more competition, but still you can get a good training pretty much anywhere as a child. Now you guys know this better than me, but I guess some equipment comes from the school, some school books, so the parents don't have to buy everything for the children. That's another thing I've noticed. And in general, the education system is very humanistic and based on children, and it's very much learning by doing instead of reading stuff by heart and just doing exercises all the time. So I would say these are some of the core things that I find very good about Finnish education. Now, stuff like you saw in Michael Moore's movie, that kids learn 3 hours per day and they speak 5 languages and they don't have homework and they become geniuses after only 12 years of school, that's nonsense in my view. But Markku, now let me go back to you. After making this small introduction, would you say that the music school system, because we're going to talk mostly about that today, in Finland, so that means music schools, is it as high level as the primary education in Finland internationally?
I would say yes. A short information how the situation with Finnish music institutes was born after the Second World War in the 1950s and especially in 1960s. there was a very strong movement in the country to build a nationwide web of music institutes and music schools. And this is how and why the music education system in Finland got to such high standard. It has been one of the true gems of our education system, and it's very visible internationally when you take into the account that so many gifted musicians, singers, conductors, and composers emerge from the country of only little bit more than 5 million people living in the country.
Small follow-up question to that. Does this have anything to do with the impact of Sibelius or not?
Of course, Sibelius and many other musicians and composers have had this impact. They are regarded as our national treasure, very big part of our culture, and we wanted to treasure that culture. So, of course, Sibelius had impact in this thing as well.
But I would also like to add that maybe the thing that really the music education has brought so good results is actually based on mostly really other factors than Sibelius being a great kind of national figure. It's more, I think, about to do with the general appreciation of civilization, culture, and education in Finland, traditionally speaking, and then, of course, certain specific kind of good solutions that have been made in the music education during the last, let's say, few decades.
Indeed.
I would ask both of you very briefly, both Niilo and Markku, if you would agree with the description I made to the Finnish education system as a whole, and if you would have something to add as to why the Finnish education system as a whole, not just the music one, is good. Let's start with Markku.
Yes, our education system has been on a very high level when compared internationally. Like you said, Matei, in your opening speech, we have a very trained, highly trained professionals as the teachers. So of course, that tends to lead to more better results in the education, in the whole education system. And of course, the work that has been done in the education system for the equality, so every student around the country have pretty much the same possibilities to have education. That's one key factor as well.
How about Niilo?
Yeah, I would like to maybe add that besides the teachers being highly educated, it's also that the culture inside of the schools and universities and different levels of the education system actually highlights the kind of individual input of the teacher and kind of even demands the teachers to do their own solutions in how they teach and the kind of actual what they teach. So at least I've noticed this when talking with colleagues from other countries that in Finland, when you're beginning to teach some course, you receive some actually quite vague guidelines in that this is what the students or the pupils should learn, and this is because of this. But you don't kind of receive many nuts and bolts kind of instructions in how to do that, but you need to figure it out quite a lot by yourself, which results into which results into the teachers kind of uh, being aware of why they do what they do in a way they do, and so it's much more personal. And
Very good point. Like Niilo stated, there is very much freedom in our teaching system when it comes to the teachers. So teachers themselves, like Niilo said, really need to, they have the possibility and also the responsibility to teach in the way they seem fit for any given situation. So the freedom in our system is actually very good thing as well.
Right. Now let's go into the next question, and now I would ask you, Markku, maybe to very shortly present to us the general picture of the Finnish system of education in music schools and music institutes.
Yes, like I said, Finland has a nationwide network of music institutes and music schools. Most of them belong what we call basic education in the arts. There is actually a law in the Finnish law system which makes clear how this kind of education should be executed. The music institutes belonging to this basic education in the arts system, they are partly funded by the states and also the municipality in which they operate. So they have quite good funding for their operations. Of course, other means of funding for them are the tuition fees and also possible donations. But anyway, it's very well funded from the state side. And the music institutes, they provide students with variety of possibilities to enjoy music as a hobby. And of course, they take care of giving the guidance to the students with an interest to have music as a future profession. So that's a very key element of their operation as well.
Right, right. Maybe Niilo has a question for you.
yeah, I would like to ask, like, since you have been teaching actually quite a long time, so how has it changed and evolved in that time? How long have you been teaching in the music schools and music institutes?
About 19 years now, so almost 2 full decades.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So how has it
my
evolved during that, and like good sides, bad sides?
Sorry, let's tell everybody that Markku is teaching mostly theoretical subjects. He's teaching mostly
Yes.
music theory and some composition and I guess music history, which is pretty much what we all teach. We teach, all of us, theoretical subjects, but
Yeah, and music analysis, music history, yeah, all those things. There was this new nationwide curriculum being published a couple of years ago in music institutes, and it further emphasizes in giving the students as much freedom in their studies as possible, so they can choose areas of study which they find interesting. And I would say that during these 2 decades I have been teaching, nowadays there is much more flexibility in the studies than a couple of decades ago. So that's one quite big change in the Music Institute field, which I have witnessed.
is it a good thing or a bad thing?
It has many good sides. Of course, there are some challenges as well, which we need to address with this new freedom.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some of them in this
Hmm.
conversation.
I'd like to ask kind of a following question, because if we are talking about the freedom of choice of the pupils, so how does the system kind of actually responds to the suggestions of the students? And on the other hand, do the students or pupils really know, like, what kind of resources the schools have, and kind of what they can kind of realistically ask and and whatnot. I'm asking this only because from the music school where I studied as a kid, that time it was possible to study composition there, even if it was kind of not necessitated by any curricula. It just, okay, somebody wants to study composition, so why not? Okay, we're going to offer it. But on the other hand, now in the same music school, it happens to be that it reads in the official curricula that we are going to teach composition, but actually in practice it has not yet been demand kind of to the level that it would have been organized in practice. So my question is kind of, do you have the same kind of experiences, or do you have the experience that the students have given some concretic kind of, hey, teach me this, and then music schools have really been able to point out a teacher who could teach that?
Very good question, and I would say this might be somewhat of an ongoing dilemma. Of course, with big system like the music institute system is, the changes, they take their time. So of course it's very, very good to hear this kind of input from the students, what they would like to study and what are their interests. Then we come usually to the question of resources. Are there good teachers capable of giving this kind of education? Are they living in the area? Can they come to the music institute? Is there enough resources to hire new people? So we are in ongoing process of modifying things, and I hope that in the coming decades also the system itself becomes a little bit more flexible. So these flexible studies we try to offer are even better available.
Right. You want to ask something, Niilo?
Yeah, I just go ahead. I think you're probably going to ask the question I was about to ask next.
Yeah, like I was going to ask Markku, what is in your opinion the most important strengths and weaknesses of this Finnish music education system?
Yes, one absolute strength which has been vocalized already is the very high quality of the teachers. Actually, with music institutes, it's in the law that there are very high requirements for the people who give teaching at those institutes. So that's a very, very good thing for the quality of the teaching. There are some challenges or weaknesses, of course. I would say that this new freedom we just discussed, sometimes it's in connection with this ongoing need of changing things just for the sake of changing them. And this doesn't this is not the case only in music institutes. I would say that it's more like in our society today, the constant need of change and development, and it's so rapid sometimes that I'm thinking that is anyone actually looking at the big picture and really thinking how all these changes will affect our future? So this is at least one of the challenges we face at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if I could comment a bit on this, as you said, I think like teachers are usually very well educated, and they're expected to be able to be inventive and creative. But in the same time, I feel that sometimes we're expected to invent the wheel a bit. You know, like every year you have to make it more fun or more entertaining or more new, more technology, more this, more that. And you can get to the feeling that I don't have time to like settle down, you know, and like get used to that and then improve. And I don't think I'm the only one who.
Mm.
And I think that's, if you ask me, that's, I guess, a bit the obsession of the Finnish education system as a whole to still be the number one or one of the most important. So I think they feel that if they don't change and they're not ahead of the wave, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
just
not
go
going.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, if we look at the PISA rankings in our education systems, we are actually coming down already in Finland.
Why is that?
Estonia, for example, got ahead of us. Was it last year or even a year before that?
Even before that, yeah.
Yeah, and our highest rankings in PISA tests were actually made with the old curriculum and with more traditional ways of teaching. And now we are, like you said, inventing the wheel again every year and doing those changes. And what we can see in the PISA rankings, we are coming down. So sometimes it might be just good to pause for a while and really like think where we are heading with all this.
Yep. And I would also stress the need of kind of the piece for work in the grassroots. This has been kind of my main dogma for a couple of years, that, you know, if you really want to get some new ideas working, so you need many years for the teachers to put them in practice, and in order to that happen well, so that you can still, you know, uh, keep the quality and not just do some really random stuff, it needs that, you know, the teachers start implementing the new ideas really slowly, bit by bit, a bit by bit. And I think one of the problems of the kind of hectic idea of, hey, let's turn the wheel again, has led to a situation that many teachers are actually getting exhausted by all this kind of external pressure of inventing the wheel again, like you say.
It's not.
So, but I need to say that my experience, even if I'm younger than any of you two, and even if I probably have kind of not experience from that many places, but I can still say that there is actually a lot of difference there, kind of depending on what kind of working culture there is in each institute or each school. Like,
Sure.
how is, like, how are the bosses, and how are the colleagues? Because I think this gives this can give you really much support. Like, okay, let's face this calmly, and, you know, take time that we need. Or then it can be that you have some lunatic boss that just you, hey, now we need this, now we need this, now we need this. So I think that the working culture locally is quite important, actually.
It's actually very important. That was a very good point.
Yes, and I also have the experience of having worked in different places, and I could say this is a bit has been difficult for me as a foreigner, because I always thought, like, if I'm gonna go work somewhere, the boss is gonna tell me, you need to do this, this, and this, do it. And every time I went to teach in a new school, the boss says, like, you have the possibility to teach the subjects however you want. And then I always felt like, okay, I have all this freedom, I don't know what to do with it, because I know they're going to keep checking on me and asking me, like, well, how is it going? Are they learning well? And the other teachers are going to find out from the students how you're teaching. And so it really depends in what institution you are and how everyone's teaching. I wanted to add to what you guys said earlier, that about inventing the wheel. I think it's also very much, let's say, pressure, so that everything becomes more technological. And I think that the idea is that the more computers and iPads and games and fun stuff you do, the more the student is going to be, like, more creative, or they're going to have a more open-minded view on work and things. And I don't know. Like I think sometimes just doing exercises is as valuable as learning how to do something with an iPad. For me, this is kind of the change for the sake of changes. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm talking about, but
Kind of, yeah. I need to say that I'm kind of one of these slow adapters and adapters, and at least for me, this pandemic time when you have been forced to learn how to use Zoom or something have been actually quite healthy. And because it has forced me to use some technological stuff that I maybe otherwise would have rejected just because of But on the other hand, it has maybe shown to some other people that, okay, it's not so simple. It's not so simple to teach well with this equipment. So I don't know. Let's see what happens. But actually, I would like to ask maybe both of you, but maybe first Markku, like, um, do you think that the COVID pandemic will influence the direction of the music education system? Or not, and if yes, so how will it affect?
I think it might be still a little bit early to make very strong observations how it will affect. Of course, as we saw last spring, we had to change our way of teaching pretty much overnight. So everything was online in a very short notice. That was like somewhat panicked way of getting into the online teaching, and of course we learned a lot of different kind of practices, what is working, what is not working, what is challenging, and what is actually very easy to do online. I think this online and remote teaching, it might become one of the standard tools of education in the future. If you think about the education and availability of education in terms of equality, remote teaching could be one way of providing students with very, very skilled education, not matter where they live in the country or so. So there is, of course, very, very positive signs as well. But how this pandemic will actually affect our global society, it remains to be seen. First, we need to get over the pandemic and see what kind of damage it has really done on global level. But
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, we will see.
well, if this was also a question for me,
Sure.
I think the online teaching will become more of a norm. And I think there is both good sides and bad sides. So that good sides is for, I don't know, I think it will, first of all, since we all had to do it, now we know that it's not the end of the world to teach, to learn Zoom and do some things online, and you don't feel so stupid with technology anymore, let's say, because everybody has to do it. It's, I guess, good to offer like a second option for people who cannot attend classes. But in the same time, I don't think it's ideal for teaching very young kids. I think it's fine to do a doctoral course online. It's fine to do a university course online. Maybe it's okay to do a piano lesson every once in a while online. But I don't think it's ideal to have it as a permanent course for, let's say, learning how to play violin or learning even music theory. And they are, like, as a music theory teacher, you probably all have this experience. There are some things you can do and some things you can't do online. But both of these things you can do in, like, face-to-face teaching. And another thing that I have noticed is that I'm a bit afraid that many parents will expect schools to offer like distance teaching to make it more comfortable for them. And it's very much the case that the school doesn't have resources to have so many teachers, that some teach the group, some teach online. It's very hard to please everybody. But now, since everybody knows that there has been online teaching, I think many people will want to have online, some will want to attend, and it will be, I think, very hard to make everybody happy.
Interesting point. On the other hand, maybe if I speculate two points to that, I maybe not every school or not every institute needs to offer that much of the online tuition, because the online tuition you can attend from wherever. So I don't know if the pressure of that will be kind of spread evenly to the all institutions, or if there's gonna be some specialization that some institutions will rather kind of just go
more to the, because there are courses that you can do by yourself. That's something else. And anyway,
True.
I don't think that for kids it's very good to do by themselves. Not much anyway. But there's these situations where the people will expect that you can teach a class of 8, 10, 15 kids, and then there's going to be some other 2-3 computers hanging there with other people who join from Zoom, and they can like attend the class that way. And that's kind of what I'm afraid of, because I think
the hybrid,
the hybrid teaching. I really hope that we are not going to that direction, because what was one of the most important things to notice last spring was that there is remote teaching and then there is contact teaching, but you really can't combine those two. They are two different things. They both have their benefits and challenges, but doing contact teaching and remote teaching at the same time as some kind of hybrid, it's not working at all.
Could I ask Markku, now since we're talking about the pandemic, and it's anyway part of the main subjects that this podcast is trying to discuss. So if you know anything about this, do you think the pandemic has influenced the way in which teaching jobs in our field are available? Like, are the schools closing because of it? Are they not opening like tenure jobs anymore? Is it happening before, or is it happening more as a consequence of COVID?
I have not heard that any schools would have been closed because of the pandemic. And the tenure jobs, for example, and especially in the field of music theory, music history, composition, what we all teach, there has been a trend for quite a while now that they are not opening tenure jobs anymore. If someone is retiring, then there is new set of teachers coming to fill that job, but nobody gets like a tenure jobs anymore. Of course that happens, but not so much as in the past decades. So pandemic has not resulted in that. It has been going on for quite a good while already. Of course, there are regional differences in this case as well.
But I guess maybe Matei is thinking about whether this could be the kind of the last feather that is kind of kill the camel. In a sense that in many places there are economical problems, and of course these kind of situations that cause an economic crisis might make a crisis to the situation, like where do we put the money, what do we have when we have less of it. So yeah, do you have anything to say to kind of that speculation?
One of the things coming up in few years will be the big talks on the funding of music institutes from the state. So, of course, it might be possible that this pandemic might somehow affect those talks in the coming years. I sincerely hope that this will not be the case, but we will see. Now it's a very crucial time to remind people how big part of our human lives the culture, music, arts actually have. And one of the good things about the pandemic, when everything came down, there was no concerts, everybody is pretty much sitting in their homes. Many people notice that actually cultural events are very important part of their lives. So I would say that Music Institute and the operation they give there, it should be saved in the coming years, of course. So I hope that pandemic really brought this into the mind, how important part of education and the life of the students it actually is.
We talked about the pandemic, we talked about general things. Let's talk also about music theory, because you touched the subject, and later we should talk also about how it will influence the where we're going with the future. But you touched the subject of the virkas that are getting like less and less in music theory. I suggest we go a bit to talk about music theory in general. We all teach this subject in various institutions. And I'm just curious, Markku, why do you think music theory has become the bad guy? In many schools, music theory is constantly getting cut and rearranged. It's either integrated into many courses. Parents often complain that why does my kid have to do music theory? Isn't it enough to just do the instrument? Is it good? Is it bad? We're doing all this integration. Why is theory such a bad guy?
There's a long tradition to this, actually. It goes back several decades in music institutes. During 1960s and 70s, the teaching of music theory was very much different from what it is now. And still, nowadays it happens very, very seldom, but maybe 10 years ago, some parents came to talk with me after the class and said that it's so nice to notice that you teach music theory in the other way than the others. And then they said, when I was in the Music Institute in 1970s, it was so horrible and so frustrating, nobody liked it. And they always had this included notion that they really thought that this would be the case even now. And when you think of 1970s, it was half a century ago. So things have changed since. But for some reason, this image of those old days, it still sticks with some people. And sometimes also those who are actually making the big changes and plans in the curriculum and how the music institutes will develop their activities in the future. It's sad to see that still music theory is sometimes seen as this bad guy, like you said. And I really need to say that when I think of the past 2 decades when I have been teaching and looking how things are being developed in music institutes, I began in Turku, in a southwestern part of Finland, and now I've been in Helsinki region for well over a decade. I have not seen that much development in teaching in any other fields of music institutes than in music theory. We have actually put it upside down. We have developed so much new teaching methods, combining with other subjects, instrument teaching, composition, improvisation, anything. So I would really like to see
Entertaining.
that everybody would actually notice this. Music theory is not the bad guy anymore.
Could I add something to this? Because I've often my students and some parents sometimes complain that it's so many years you study music theory. Like, why do you have to do it 5 years or 6 years? And I remember when I was a kid, I started playing piano when I was 7. I had 2 hours of, like, 2 lessons, let's say, per week of music theory for 12 years. 2 hours of music theory.
Lucky you.
I don't know if it's for me it's like very hard to understand how you can learn music theory in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years as a child. Even as an adult, it's pretty hard to learn, and there's often these courses that are done in like 1 or 2 years where you do all the music theory. There are so many things that have to be internalized, like, for example, how the intervals sound or how to write a proper dictation, and it takes time to get used to these things. And I think what music theory mostly offers is speed. You see a score, you don't have to think about it because you understand what's there. And just like when you drive a car, you see the traffic lights, you know what you should be doing. That's the analogy I usually try to give to parents, that playing piano is like, without music theory, is like driving a car without having gone to the driving school. Because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You know how the car works, but you don't know what's going on the street. But I would say, if I remember about my own childhood, I was born in Romania. I was in 1991 in school, 92. Everybody was poor. You didn't have many ways to have fun. So going to a theory class where a teacher would just play piano a bit was fun enough. None of us was thinking about having fun. We were thinking this is school. In school, you're supposed to learn. And I think this is a matter of let's say, the today's world, the technological world, let's say, more prosperous life. So children are expecting to have fun at the lesson because they can have fun with their computer games, with their phones, with their chats. So in a way, I feel that we have to compete with that fun. And that's why we always try changing the lessons to make it more fun so that kids don't quit the school. But when I was a kid, we had none of that problem because we didn't have computers, we didn't have phones, we didn't have so many other ways to have fun than playing with each other in the yard or with a ball. And that's probably for you as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think the same way. When we address this question about music theory, we really need to take into account how our modern society nowadays, how it is. We live in amid the ever ongoing disruptions and interruptions, and social media and those phenomena, they are actually everywhere. They are, could I even say, fundamental part of our, or at least someone's life. And I have noticed that nowadays students have much more difficulties in concentrating as they had maybe 5, 10, or at least 20 years ago.
Interesting.
So they live in such rushed environment all the time with all kind of interruptions. They really don't know how to concentrate for one thing for at least 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So the music theory is not to blame here. It's the society around us and our way of living, how it is arranged nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's quite telling that I don't not remember now who was it, Steve Jobs or some some big guy from a big a technology firm that told in public that he doesn't want his own children to have a own phone or something before they're in a certain age.
Yeah.
I think that totally tells you something that
Actually, yeah, that was
yeah.
actually Steve Jobs, and
Okay.
yeah, and this thing surfaced when Apple launched iPad in 2010, and Steve Jobs got the question. Of course, all of your kids have iPad, right? And he said, "No, I don't allow them to even touch it." And they asked why, and he said, "iPad destroys creativity." So,
Yeah. Actually, this is one of the things where I'm kind of
Well, that
a desperate old-fashioned guy to the desperate end that like I yeah, I have a computer, I have a phone, but to the pads, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I have to say that I haven't found any good reason to have one. And also one thing that kind of has been available previously in an institute where I was teaching was that there was some iPads with some music theory games to teach the kids to play, but I need to say that I really never took my extra moments in my week to learn to use these apps, because I was just like, why? Like, you can do this without the tablet. You can do it without the apps. You can do it, by singing. You can do it by playing. You can do it by interacting with the children in real life. So kind of, why not do that first? And kind of, then it's some kind of, maybe it's some kind of supplement to have it technologically, but to kind of have the technology first and the real thing only after that, it's kind of, why in the world?
yeah,
why? Because if you're doing with the iPad, it seems more professional and new, whereas if you do it with the piano or with singing, it seems like an old teacher who is teaching in old ways. Okay.
yeah.
Now I'm being a bit ironic, maybe.
Yeah, but this is actually a very good issue to talk about, if you like. Technology is here to stay, of course, and I'm not anti-technology at all. I use it in my composing and teaching work every day, but still, it's not very fit to everything. So it's, like Niilo said, it's a very good supplement to many things. But we should never think that we need to do everything technology first and then something else afterwards. For example, if we look at the vast studies in how our brain, human brain works, how we remember things, how we learn things, it is very clear that actually technology in many ways, iPads, phones, it makes it harder for us humans to learn new things and actually to remember them for the rest of our life. But when we do things by our hands, we write with a pencil on a paper, it actually gives a lot stronger ways of remembering what we are doing, and it will stay in our memory. And if we do it on some electronic device, it might disappear very quickly. So if we are really trying to develop education and try to aim to very good results in education, we need to also notice which are the traditional ways of teaching and learning which still work very well.
Right, right.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, actually, maybe as a follow-up question to this, I would like to ask of the online teaching, because now I think all of us have approximately half a year of experience or maybe a little bit less, considering there has been the summer holiday in between. But of some kind of forms of remote teaching. So I'd like to ask that both of you actually, Markku and Matei. So what kind of new ways of teaching music theory and related subjects have you learned on this time, and what sorts what methods from that pack you would buy to your kind of permanent pack forever, and what on the other hand are those that you're gonna kind of immediately abandon and go back to the old style when the pandemic allows it?
Markku.
Yes, very good question. About the old style, I would say that anything that has something to do with really like listening to things and try to learn by listening, like singing, listening to the music, harmonies, intervals, scales, whatever you like. That is something that is very hard to do online and especially with a big group. If we are in a single student teaching, like I do with my composition students, there is only one student in the classroom or in the online class. It's so much easier to actually really concentrate on that one student. But when you have 15 students, it's hard enough to do it in the classroom, and it's rather impossible to do it online. So what's possible and easy to do online is anything, or at least some things that have something to do with music notation. So we can, for example, do some harmony analysis with the group on online teaching. If everybody sees the score we are reading, we can listen to it together. That works quite well. But of course, any kind of quick notions and additional comments, they usually come up easier in the classroom and not so much online. So music is so much about the audible qualities as well, and interaction with the others. That's something that is very challenging to do online. So online teaching, in my opinion, can never actually replace the normal ways of teaching. It might be a good supplement in some cases, but still I would say it has more challenges than advantages at the moment.
I would say, since you asked like what we would keep to our package and not, like I think the way I thought it was more like online teaching is done like this, and like in-person teaching is done like that, rather than taking something from one to implement to the other. The good thing that was for me in online teaching was that you can absolutely remove any kind of chatting between kids. Like you can just take their mics off and you keep your lesson. Nobody interrupts you. If they have questions, you can just have one of them speak at a time, and you're laughing, but you know.
Yeah, Matei, are you sure that all those kids actually were there for the duration of the whole class, or did they just put the camera and mic off?
I try to keep track of all of them.
Yeah.
So that's good. I would say that for me, every time I did some interval listening or chord listening or oral training of any kind, melody dictation, like this has been easy. I just go on the side, I play the piano, nobody's seeing what I'm doing. If I'm playing loud enough, clear enough, they will hear and they will write, and then they show me with the notebook like this, you know, to the camera, which is not very practical, especially if it's very many of them, but boy, the moment it gets to sending each other scores and photos and materials, then it gets more messy than this, I would say. And So the good part of online teaching is that you can do it clear and, let's say, fast without interruptions. But when it comes about feedback, checking their what they did, then it becomes very difficult. In class, you can just walk around them, see what they did, if their exercises were done right. But good luck with forcing many children to send you emails with their lessons or uploading their materials somewhere. Like it's hard for them as well to keep track with all these uploadings and all these like online lessons, and so.
Indeed.
Yeah, I would maybe say that for me, the hardest thing has been um, concerning that when I teach solfege, um, that that it's impossible if you have an internet connection to hear two voices simultaneously so that they're really synced
Yeah,
because
Mhm.
of the
sorry, I
the delay.
was gonna say
And
that. Yeah,
this has been really frustrating to me because for me, singing in many parts together has been one of the kind of not only one of the effective ways in teaching how you listen and how you hear things, but also in how you know it's just pleasant. It's nice to do that.
listen, like I've completely erased singing from the lessons when I was doing online teaching. I just gave them paper and I said, please send me the singing. And I got them either through WhatsApp or through email. But we could never sing at the lesson. Like, it's impossible. So,
Yeah, that's kind of the bad parts. I would say that's kind of
absolutely.
amputated in a way. But
Yeah.
kind of good things that I've learned through this are actually maybe a couple of them. One is usage of online games. There exists actually many. Well, you have to first take out if they're full of crap or if they're just if they are correct enough. But then on the other hand, when you get that, okay, this exercise for these kids, do so it might actually work and uh, and teach them in a way that is maybe hard to do in the normal interaction. So I would say that's a nice supplement. Then another thing is exercises where I say to students that, okay, take this as a backtrack and sing on top of that and send back to me. Of course, that demands a lot of work from me because I need to first do the backtrack.
Mm.
But from the feedback that I had from some university students was that was actually a very effective way of learning how to sing in synchronization, how to sing in good tuning, because they could hear what they have done, and if they really think themselves that I'm not happy with it, then they did it again. So even without me needing to say that you were a bit low there and you were a bit late there, they did quite a lot of the work themselves. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I'm going to rely as an additional exercise in the future, whatever the health situation will be.
Yeah, I have heard same kind of comments from many instrument teachers. For example, during the lockdown last spring, they asked the students to make short videos of the pieces they were rehearsing. And it usually resulted that the students rehearsed more, because when they made the video and they noticed, okay, this was not very good, I do it again. So they did more work by doing those videos and actually rehearsed the piece very well before they sent it to the teacher. So there are positive effects as well. Of course, all this going through materials and, like Matei said, where to find time to check the tasks of every student. In remote teaching, it takes a lot of time outside the remote classroom. So actually, I was quite devastated last March when the pandemic was on and we got the guidance to go to the remote teaching. I was teaching 27 hours per week last spring, but during the first week, I had to work for 80 hours in order to get those 27 hours going. So
don't worry, Markku, when you say 80 on the video, we will censor it. We will beep it so that nobody hears.
okay.
I just said, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the
Awful.
things to take into consideration in remote teaching and online teaching is that we need to think how long the classes will be, what will be done there, because it takes so much more time from teacher to plan the classes, give feedback and all that. So there might be some big planning ahead.
Right.
I think this is a very good example of what I said earlier about that when you're going to do change in how things are done, it's better to give the teachers time to learn how to do that. So now we really actually needed to adapt very quickly, which led sometimes to very stressful situations. That sounds really horrible. Horrible, the 80-hour per week situation you described.
I
Okay,
would not
Matei, how much?
go to that again. 11 hours per day was too much.
Yeah.
We have a couple of times now asked like how was it 10 or 20 years ago compared to now, but I think now it's interesting to speculate a moment of how will it be 10 or 20 years in future. I mean, because now we mentioned that the composition has been recently added to a kind of
to the curriculum.
Compulsory part of the curriculum, both in the kind of primary schools and also in the music schools, and then also this on top of the kind of highlighting the freedom element in the education system. How will this actually affect the mind state of the future generations? So what could we what could we expect from this new generation that has had more freedom and also got more touch in composition than the previous, and it may, perhaps also to improvisation than the previous generations? What do you think, Markku?
Very good question. I would say that composing in a way is innovation. So we are inventing new things, new usually audible things. And with this improvisation and composition in the new curriculum and the flexibility of modern teaching, I think that we are actually fostering a new generation that hopefully will have a good basis for innovations, both in music but also in several other fields of the society. With the technology becoming even bigger part of our daily lives in any field of society, we need people and with innovative minds. So all this teaching and education we give in composition and improvisation, I think it will have very positive effects in the coming decades in this innovative field. So I'm very I trust that we are going into a very good direction here.
I think so too, and I will also like add that on top of kind of innovations in the kind of technologic, economical kind of side, I think it's also about how deeply you think. Also in what it comes to personal relationships and let's say solving societal problems and so on. Because in composition, you know, in order to get the beauty in the music the way you want, you need to actually solve really many problems and kind of problems that are often kind of clashing with each others. So how to solve that? I think this this could also provide a basis for really humane thinking, which is kind of connected to all your emotions and who you are and how do you feel about things. I think this could also be a healthy addition in that.
Yeah, very, very good point. Yeah.
I'm come from a bit different point of view. Um, I mean, I'm also teaching the composition and improvisation things in my classes, and of course I'll gladly do them. They're more fun. I guess kids also enjoy them more, and I guess it could help with creativity, let's say, in other fields and in composing maybe. But in the same time, it does take time away from the actual theory that you have to teach in a music theory class. Um, and I think the composition is more in the direction of making the class more fun, but I think it's also in the direction of making the class easier because you don't have time to teach or to concentrate on all sorts of other säveltapailu, oral training exercises that you would otherwise do if you didn't have the composition. So it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a more fun and for everybody school, I think then you can have very nicely done these courses. But if you're looking for schools that take children further and further so that some of them can become professionals, I think it takes a bit of the opportunity for some of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I would like to add to this that in the music education system, composition should be seen as an entity of its own. So of course, this integration with music theory classes, it's a plus. It's a very good supplement. But like you said, Matei, it tends to take too much time from the music theory. And again, composition should have enough time as well. So we should have both music theory and composition as a separate subjects. Of course, they are in many places closely linked to each other, but I'm not enthusiastic at all of the future where composition would just be part of music theory class and nothing else. It should be its own class.
Right.
Especially, and while I totally advocate using methods that include small composition tasks into the real kind of not real but the kind of more traditional music theory subjects too, I think you will never gain these kind of goals that Markku and me was talking with that only. Like it's totally different thing to see that, hey, here's a da da da, and turn it around in 4 different ways, as you would do maybe in a solfege class, to make the kids also invent their own variations. And then it's completely different thing to have real tuition in composition, where you are kind of when you are kind of said that, hey, you can create whatever you want, but now let's have different approaches to it, so you have more tools. So I see this, as Markku said, as two kind of different things that should not be put to the same tin box just because they might be taught by the same teacher, or there might be other practical things to that.
One thing to address here, which is very important to say, about composition teachers nowadays. I would say that we are running in a little bit risk that composition is being taught by people who are not composers. That is what is happening in some music institutes in our country at the moment. And I would like to remind that we actually have a law in Finnish law system that makes it very clear who is competent to teach in music institutes. And it should mean that if we are actually having composition as its own subject in music institutes, it should be taught by composers and not, for example, piano teachers, cello teachers, or music theory teachers, unless the music theory teacher is trained composer as well. So this is one of the things we really need to take care at the moment, because it's a very new way of and new teaching culture taking place in the music institutes. We need to be careful that composition actually get some kind of substance in the music institute than all the instruments, because of course it's clear that in a music institute you don't put a flutist to teach contrabass playing. Nobody would do that. But the case is not same always with composition teachers.
Yeah, there seems to be this risk, and this is a really, really important battle, let's say, that we're about to fight. Okay, Matei.
Yeah, so I was going to ask Markku, we were talking about the changes in the music education in the past 20 years. And I've been always very curious of this. I've often heard this idea that music schools are losing children because more and more children want to do other hobbies. But from what I've noticed from the kids I teach is that many of them have 3-4 different hobbies, which to me seems very much. I had one hobby when I was a kid. I mean, sure, I was going to theory and piano, but many of them do like theory and piano, and then go to do some gym and some football and hockey, and then
ice skating on a professional level. That happens. Yeah.
So there is this argument that we should make the schools more fun because we're losing students. But I'm curious, aren't people just taking more hobbies now than they were taking 20 years ago? And even 20 years ago, weren't people taking the same hobbies then, like football, ice skating, painting, whatever it is? It's not like they were invented yesterday.
Yeah, I have been wondering this very same question quite much. It seems I have the same notion that many students have many hobbies nowadays. And if I think of the past 2 decades, I don't know, is it a growing trend that everybody is doing so many things at the same time? But in the beginning of 2000, the first decade there, less students were absent from the classes during those days. And now when they are absent, they said, okay, I have ice skating practice or ice hockey, gym, scout, whatever they do. And it's rather interesting to notice that all these other hobbies seem to be more important to them, because they go there and they think that, okay, now I can skip Music Institute class today because I'm going there. So it's a growing trend. It has been happening more and more in recent years. And one of the ways how music institutes seem to be reacting is to make their operations more fun and easily accessible. I would see some challenges in this method. If music institutes are there only for entertainment, if I make this kind of very strong argument, if they just provide entertainment at the expense of dedicated training in music, I'm afraid that this will affect our future. Do we get professional musicians and very enthusiastic music lovers in the way we got in the previous decades. So how this will affect our concert life, our professional musicians, composers, singers, conductors, anyone, we will see. But I would say that music institutes actually, they should demand more from the students.
I could have a follow-up to what you said about that, because I think this is also a very important point, that the more you drop the level to make it entertaining, the more you're going to have less qualified musicians who will get into, you know, like university and study at the Sibelius Academy or the universities of applied sciences that are here in Finland. And I mean, when I came to Finland, I was told that the level is very high in Sibelius Academy and orchestras and professional musicians. And I've had conversations with various people who've told me that they've sensed the level has dropped in certain departments at the professional musicians level. And I'm also afraid that if all the music education is going to do is make it more fun, the level is going to keep dropping, and the very talented people will not have a possibility to develop their talent and to the degree to which they could. How do you see, Markku, the situation developing in like 10 years, 20 years? Will we have big names like I don't know, Magnus Lindberg or Sakari Oramo, or will we have big musicians or not?
I would say that we will have, if we have the courage to actually demand more of the students today. We should not go too much into this entertainment business, if I can use this phrase. I have noticed that many students, actually I counted maybe 1 year ago, I have taught almost 2,000 students during the past 2 decades, which I have been teaching. So I have some kind of view how the young students nowadays are. Most of them are very enthusiastic about their music as a hobby. And of course, there are also students who plan to have music as a future profession. And all those students, they are usually very happy when the teacher is quite demanding. Because that's also a way of showing appreciation. We appreciate the students. We are not just fooling around with them. We are actually believing in them, that when we demand things from them, they can actually do it and they will develop further. And they really like this. They want us to make demands. And I would say that we have some challenges in music institutes with this at the moment, because sometimes you might hear as a teacher that you shouldn't demand that much. Make it a little bit funnier, like a game. Well, of course, it can be a game. Actually, I once heard that you could be a little bit more like kindergarten teacher. Well, I'm not kindergarten teacher, so that says something about the atmosphere we are in at the moment. So
Sure.
So there
Yeah,
are things we need to address.
Niilo.
I just like to ask whether the person who asked you to be more like a kindergarten teacher was somebody, uh, um, some colleague or some of your bosses in the music school, or was it some of the parents?
It was not the parent or the teaching colleague. So
Okay,
do the math
thanks.
there. Yeah.
I do the math there.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, I totally agree about the idea that you know, or let's say I don't see that the thing being fun and demanding would be kind of something that would kind of, you know, outweigh the others. I think the opposite way, that, you know, when you have something that's really meaningful, it's gonna be both fun and demanding on the same
Yeah,
time. And if I
sure.
think those experience in my childhood, in my youth, that have really inspired myself, which have inspired me so that I have become a professional musician. Um, uh, so I think those have actually been always both really fun and really demanding situations, but situations that have, given me the real experience of what the music is and what it can give to people. So I think this is what we should give more to them.
Yeah,
And now if we think, if a youngster is thinking, should I go to the skating lesson, or should I go to the music theory lesson? So I think they're not thinking like, oh, what would be more easy, but they're thinking which will give them more. And I think this is what we should be thinking as teachers. How
indeed.
much can we give? And I think one of the problems that we maybe are now discussing is the problem of double booking, and a kind of problem of filling the calendar with everything. I've noticed that there is always some students and some parents, especially parents if you're talking about younger students or younger pupils, that kind of think that the calendar needs to really be full of everything, and then that leads to a situation when you're double booking.
Mm.
And one of the things I've kind of from experience and by making mistakes kind of learned is that, double booking is never a solution. It just makes your life miserable. So I don't know what should we do in society so that the parents and the
I, uh, yeah, Niilo got a bit stuck, but
Yeah,
I wanted to say like complementary to that, since this is something that I've been thinking about for many years since I moved to Finland and I went to the Finnish education.
youngsters wouldn't take it.
You got,
Let's see if I get back after that.
you got,
yeah.
so we didn't hear anything you said. Yeah.
You were on pause for maybe 45 seconds or
What was the last thing you heard?
I don't
uh,
remember, to be honest.
me neither.
But is it okay if I make my point now? And
Yeah,
Yeah,
just do your point and then we go sleeping.
this is my take from the Finnish education system as a whole. I've noticed that children here are pretty reasonable. They're good material. They listen if you tell them, please do that, please do this. They are polite. They are easy to become your friend, let's say. And I think they have very good material, Finnish children. They're very good material to create very valuable adults, let's say. And by valuable adults, I mean people who have knowledge, who have talent, who have developed skills both like intellectually and, let's say, spiritually. But I think there is this idea that in Finland, and probably in the whole Nordic countries, that education, both at home and at school, should be done with a lot of pampering. A lot of pampering. Like, kids have to be taken care of. You should always say the positive things, never the negative things. You should always be like understanding. You should never demand too much. Like, this is the feeling I'm getting, that education here is based, it's so humanistic that it goes a bit over the top, in the sense that children grow with this impression that life is beautiful, that they're in the center of it, that they deserve to get the best education, they deserve to get attention. And somehow I feel that by the time they reach 18, 20, when they have to get into the real life, they are not emotionally equipped to be strong somehow. Like, they never had to face like adversity. They never had to learn the balance between responsibility and fun and yeah, I think they didn't have to learn very much about responsibility somehow. So when they become a bit older and they realize that I have to get a job, I have to find a partner, I have to find a house, they're depressed and they don't know why. And I think it's because they didn't learn enough to be responsible and they were not demanded very much. And I think that's a pity, because there can be definitely ways in which you can offer both proper, let's say, affection as a teacher and a very meaningful education, and a way to make people be somebody, you know. You don't have to always take care that their emotions are always pampered. Yeah, this about, I guess it's connected to what we were talking beforehand. Maybe it's also interesting for you guys to see how a foreigner like me sees the situation.
I think there's a point in what you say, and maybe this is connected to what I was talking about, the idea that some of the parents and some of the youngsters kind of want everything, which leads that they just double book their calendar and try to do everything on the same time and have everything, and that they don't take the responsibility that, hey, I have only 24 hours a day and I even need to use some of that to sleeping.
Indeed.
Right.
Yeah. I would second, Matei, your opinion about the demanding. I think we live a little bit in the atmosphere where demanding is seen as a negative thing, but actually it's a positive thing. Of course, we need to give very constructive way the feedback, how the student can develop their skills, and it can be done in a very positive way. But also when we demand things from the students, they give, I would say, I believe that that gives them an image that the teacher actually believes in them, that they are up to do this task. So they are trusted, and that's very valuable feeling to have when you're growing up, and also as an adult. So there should be more demanding in the music education system, in music institutes at the moment. So like Matei, like you said, we are maybe a little bit over the top with the positive thing. So it's a very delicate subject, yeah, but it should be addressed.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for this wonderful podcast. This was with Markku Klami, our guest, and with Niilo Tarnanen, our co-host, and with me, Matei, Gheorghiu. And if any of you has anything to add still, or we are happy with the note we are ending. Well, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to end. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matei and Niilo, for inviting me. It was a pleasure, and
thank you very much.
I think we had a very nice discussion here.
I think this will be interesting for people who are both working in the Finnish system, whether they are parents or teachers themselves, but it might be also interesting for people who live abroad and who want to compare how the music systems are in their countries and to understand some of the internal affairs of the Finnish education system as a whole. So on that note, guys, thank you very much. And tune in to Key Culture again. See you next time.
See you.
Thank you.